This is going to happen. With 343 Industries so completely and utterly fumbling one of gaming's most rich and iconic intellectual properties, the Halo universe, with it continuously declining in relevance from the pop cultural zeitgeist from the years after Halo 4's release, arguably the only good Halo game in terms of narrative and story from 343 Industries, the summer of 2025 is ripe for the other first-person sci-fi green-armor-clad hero to fill the super soldier podium vacated by John 117. Doom: The Dark Ages, the prequel to 2016's Doom and 2020's Doom Eternal, is primed to shield bash into the spot in less than a month's time. Although the original Doom, released back in 1993, predates the Master Chief, and the reboot in 2016 has brought new life back to the franchise and Doomslayer himself, Halo is the frontrunner of the two in terms of popularity, wider pop cultural reach, and sales figures. However, with the current stagnant state of Halo, id Software looks prepared to gain some ground in these areas with their upcoming release. It's clear that id is confident in the product they have. 2 months ago, they started their massive promotion push with a 12-minute studio direct, followed up by an always professional and informing Ryan McCaffrey interview via IGN that included 20 minutes of reveals in which the Dark Ages game director, Hugo Martin, and executive producer, Marty Stratton, looked poised while speaking about their dev team's third entry into the rebooted Doom franchise. In their direct and McCaffrey's interview, Martin and Stratton showcased their premium shooter focused on a polished single-player campaign, a gaming experience that, due to so many development studios being mandated to make a live service game by greedy studio execs in hopes of that elusive live service cash grab, has fallen by the wayside in our modern era of gaming. McCaffrey was keen to point out that with this game, id is seemingly zagging while so many other development teams continue to zig, whether on their accord or because of that aforementioned studio mandate. The push for live service games is clearly one of the reasons why the gaming community continuously gets less and less single-player gaming experiences as we go from one console generation to the next. Yes, AAA game development is a beast. Raising Kratos and the Grounded documentaries showed how even gaming's most successful gaming studios, Sony Santa Monica and Naughty Dog respectively, have huge ups and downs in their long development cycles of their gaming series. But remember, even though Sony defined themselves in the PS3 and PS4 era with the single-player gaming experience through games such as The Last of Us, God of War, Horizon, Infamous, Ratchet & Clank, and more, cementing them as the dominant ecosystem for gamers to get polished, single-player AAA experiences, there were up to 12 live service games being developed by Sony in recent years during the end of the PS4/beginning of PS5 era. Everyone, even Sony, the home for single-player gaming experiences, was trying to make live service games. With Kill the Justice League and Concord's epic fails, paired with the success of recent single-player-only experiences such as Stellar Blade, Black Myth Wukong, and to a lesser extent with Dragon's Dogma 2, Silent Hill 2 Remake, and Hades 2, publishing execs are hopefully understanding a combination of two things. 1. There is a threshold to the number of live service games that can exist and vie for the attention of gamers that do enjoy live service games, simply from a numbers standpoint. And 2, that the single-player experience will always be something we want. And if gamers are given a focused and polished single-player game, the development team, and as a result, the publishing studios, will be rewarded. Just look at other games that gave us dedicated single-player experiences. Black Myth Wukong has now sold a landmark 25 million copies to this date, and not even a year has passed since its release. Stellar Blade's director and CEO, Kim Hyung-tae, is now worth over $500 million, cementing him as one of South Korea's wealthiest individuals. The point is, with gamers living in what can be described as a AAA single-player gaming drought, Thanks to the aforementioned precipitating factors that have left the gaming ecosystems of all platforms in this unique state, the summer of 2025 is just waiting for games to fill that void. And my prediction is that id's latest entry into the rebooted Doom franchise, with their offering of the Dark Ages, will provide gamers with just that. With regards to the sci-fi shooter space, this prediction almost seems like an inevitability based on the current state of id Software and 343 Industries. In terms of 343, movement is happening. In fact, the main studio at 343 has been rebranded, and they are now called Halo Studios. Studio head Pierre Heinz remains, but there has been a shift in leadership roles with new developers stepping in. Additionally, the studio has committed to using Unreal 5 as their game engine, throwing out the system they had in place in prior games of using their in-studio created Slipspace engine, allowing the dev team to solely dedicate their attention to development of their next Halo game instead of the need to also develop their Slipspace engine in parallel. Resources can completely be dedicated to the game development now for whatever Halo Studios is cooking up on Unreal 5. In summary, the development team that gave us the last iterations of the Master Chief has been shaken up, but what they are creating will not be ready for us for at least another several years. The mantle of responsibility that 343, now Halo Studios, was given over the sci-fi first-person shooter genre with the Chief that Bungie served up to them on a silver platter after Halo Reach and before moving on to Destiny is now vacant. I am a Halo fan, and I adore Master Chief and the richness of the lore, specifically the legendary yet tragic history of the Spartan 2s. I want Halo to succeed. I want the Chief to have wins in the future. But objectively, Halo is in a stagnant state. What Halo Studios plans and needs to do is perhaps take notes from what id has done with their rebooted Doom universe. With Quake and the original Doom games, id created and helped define the first-person shooter space. With Doom 2016, id successfully brought back the legendary hero that Romero and that dev team created. This new team of Stratton and Martin have given the community 2, and with the next month's release of the Dark Ages, 3 uniquely different feeling shooters for this modern era of gaming. Based on preview content, Doom Guy is ready to bruise and crush his way into the sci-fi shooter space and reclaim its mantle, to be the reclaimer that John 117 could not be. Let's take a look at how the confident heads at id will accomplish this and once again cement their super soldiers' prominence in modern gaming culture. This is the Doomslayer, Usurps John 117, and once again becomes the destroyer of hell and its demons.
Confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
In both id's direct and the McCaffrey interview, Martin and Stratton speak about their 3 guiding pillars during game development: combat, exploration, and story, which they say has allowed them to give us, the fans, a premium single-player shooter, a genre that was once extremely saturated during generations past, but now not so much. Let's jump into the Dark Ages game development pillars. Combat. Making the player feel powerful. In the original Halo, once the pod crash lands on our very first Halo ring and we become the Master Chief, it's obvious he is built different. He jumps high above the Marines, and when he comes upon them, they shout in delight and relief at the sight of him, revealing that this avatar we inhabit is more than just a vehicle to bring us into the first-person headspace of Bungie's new game. He is a character with a background of legend, someone who can turn the tide of humanity's dire state, stranded on an alien ring world that is pursued by the unrelenting Covenant forces. The combat of the original trilogy never veered too far off of the first game, giving us the feel of what a Spartan 2 could do: punch incredibly hard, jump higher, run at speeds that rival various vehicles, and of course, dual-wield weapons that a normal human would have to hold with two hands. What 343 did with the Chief and other Spartans in their trilogy was a bit different. With Halo 4, their focus was about giving fans a slew of new enemies to battle with the Prometheans and the Didact himself, while keeping John's abilities and combat feel generally the same, but just iterated to feel more modern of that time. Then, in their last two games, we really saw things change in terms of what John and the other Spartans could do, which were generally well received by the community. By the time we got to Halo 5, we did see things evolve further with the Spartan abilities. Then with Halo 6 Grapple Shot, which was provided to us to scale the open world with great efficiency, as well as a number of other purposes. 343 was able to keep John feeling powerful. Say what you will about Halo 5's Spartan 4s, Locke to me is an okay character, but there is absolutely no way he could go head-to-head with a Spartan 2, especially the Spartan 2, 117. I really think 343 should have focused on Blue Team, or at least done a better job to show the differences between Spartan 2s and 4s, if they did want to keep the two teams that made up the campaign. But yes, combat always felt true to being a Spartan super soldier, and it could be argued that 343 failed for reasons outside of combat, because of the good job that they did with their ability to iterate when necessary and provide welcome changes that reflect the nature and characteristics of their games. id is doing the same, but to a more heightened degree, keeping Doom's combat true to its core, but iterating in more drastic ways between each of their games to give them their own distinct feel. They did it between 2016 and Eternal, and I'm excited to see they're doing it again now between Eternal and the Dark Ages. In terms of staying true to their core, they're doubling down on this. The Dark Ages is a return to the original OG Doom. Martin describes the gameplay as being akin to strafing along the horizon line, with movement being about weaving through projectiles. As was the case with many games coming out around the late 20-teens and early 2020s, combat was more so about verticality than it ever had been. Both Halo Infinite and Doom Eternal were extremely vertical shooters and products of their time. id still describes Eternal as having combat that feels like you were a fighter jet, and John was flying all around Zeta Halo, also partially because Infinite was an open-world game and the grapple shot allowed players better accessibility to traversal. But now we are ready for a new change. Again, with 343 Halo Studios in a dormant, half-baking state, modern-day id is here with their prequel that they describe as making you feel like an iron tank. Martin tells us we will feel heavy and strong, but still fast. And this statement has me most excited because of what was revealed with how we will achieve that feeling. If we are to feel like an iron tank, we need to be able to take a beating, be able to endure some demon-dealt punishment. So enter the shield saw. Through it, we're going to be able to do a lot. Block, parry, throw it as a projectile, and more. It is the first part of the new core gameplay loop that will be just as enticing, yet different, from what we got in 2016 and Eternal. And man, what a chime it has to it. But the shield can do more than just block and parry. If the late 20-teens and early 2020s were all about having grapple hooks in their games to allow quick player maneuverability, the 2020s have defined themselves by being about having a parry. But id has made the shield saw a unique one. As the first step of the core gameplay loop, it is meant to exploit enemy weaknesses in a number of ways: breaking armor, bouncing off of plasma shields when it's used as a projectile, sticking into flesh to stun lock enemies in their tracks, pulling the Doomslayer through the battlefield when he uses it in a shield charge, and to shatter superheated armor to create area of effect attacks. And parries can be upgraded in a skill tree to give us unique boosts and benefits, which lead us to the next part of the gameplay loop, what we do after a successful parry when the enemy is stunned or locked up. The Doomslayer, of course, can use his fists, but we definitely want more, and id knows that. They're giving us 3 melee options to deal out some serious demon mangling. These are melee-type weapons that we hold in the opposite hand as the shield saw. They are the Iron Flail, Electrified Gauntlet, and the Doom Mace. And as the second part of the gameplay loop, in addition to dealing out major damage, it can also buff Doomslayer himself or replenish certain attributes or items, such as ammo. With the Dark Ages motto being stand and fight, these 2 parts of the core gameplay loop are extremely important and therefore have a symbiotic relationship with one another. An example of this synergy is that successful parries could instantly charge the Iron Flail so that they serve as a devastating 1-2 punch against the hordes of hell. And finally, that brings us to what is the third component of the gameplay loop, the guns. Lots of guns. Martin simply describes this part as, you hurt things with your guns. Exploration. Biomes upon biomes. id's second guiding pillar in the development cycle is exploration, to open up our pathway and give us unique and diverse biomes of hell and elsewhere to explore. The majority of the game likely takes place in hell, but considering the franchise has taken us to space, other planets, and different places on Earth already, we are going to venture outside the gates of hell to different planets or realms in the Dark Ages, because id knows that is what we want. In terms of exploration, id is showing us they really understand the comparisons it has already gotten and continues to get from its super soldier-like franchise, Halo. Zeta Halo was an extremely, and I mean extremely repetitive and boring type of video game biome. Because Halo Infinite went open world, it was such a shame the game had so many recycled and similar looking locales. But id's Direct was adamant about telling and showing us what their game has to offer. If exploration is one of their core pillars, and what we find is going to be meaningful, unique, and new, why not have biomes to match? So far, we've seen hell itself, Gothic-infused castles in fog-drenched locales, multiple dungeons, and various biome types like forests, barren battlefields, and also completely different worlds. We've been shown a large sandbox, what id is calling the largest play space they've ever created. And similar to how Kratos was able to throw his Leviathan axe to puzzle solve and open up hidden pathways, Doomguy will be doing the same. His Captain America-like shield will be tossed around to reveal tons of secrets ready to be found. Martin put it simply, exploration and puzzle solving leads to rewards that'll make you feel godlike. Story, a cinematic blockbuster. What has me most hyped about the Dark Ages is to see how dedicated id is with delivering a great story. In 2016, we were allowed to piece the story together through the Codex. Interpretation and hearing what a community has to say about the story from game codexes are a whole state of being for some gamers, myself included. As we got to Eternal, the scope increased and the world expanded, which led to more cinematic storytelling, but still contained. Now, with the Dark Ages, the Codex seems to be completely gone. Martin states they've taken the story out of the Codex and into the cutscenes. But being that this installment of the Doom franchise is a prequel, we're going to be getting payoffs in this game that are everything that happened in the Slayer Testaments as well as what we read about in the Codex. We'll actually be playing, and through the cinematic cutscenes be seeing what Doomslayer's legendary feats that we only read about actually are. And it's because the game's a prequel we're going to see things culminate in incredibly unique ways that stay true to the DNA of Doom. Similar to what id is doing with the combat, returning to form and taking a cue from the original trilogy, the story also seems to be sticking to its roots, but staying within this modern rebooted trilogy. And this is where I believe Doom will succeed with their third game, while 343 did not with their third Halo game. Again, Halo 4, in my opinion, is the only game in the 343 era of Halo games that worked from a narrative standpoint. John was given a unique new antagonist and enemy with the Didact and Prometheans, and Cortana's death at the end of Halo 4 and its effects on the Chief was one of the best goodbyes between two iconic characters in all of video games. But it seems that 343 did not know how to expand the story in a satisfying way afterwards. Expansion can be hard. Writers are tasked with trying to determine an appealing and satisfying route for the future of a franchise's story. What happened with Halo 5 was anything but that. Cortana was brought back, making her death irrelevant, and by bringing her back as the villain, Chief was not given the opportunity to have the void left by her death explored. Spartan 4s were brought into the story with Locke and his team, and for some reason they were on the same power level as Blue Team, who are all comprised of superior Spartan 2s. And to make matters worse, the legendary Blue Team was pushed to the side, given a small fraction of play and screen time to make way for a team of Spartan 4s that 343 mistakenly bet on to be the new faces of the Halo franchise. And with Halo 6, 343 seemed to have a lack of a singular vision. The story of the previous two games was dismantled to make way for the Banished. Even though Atriox is an overwhelming villain that had a power level above a Mjolnir-wearing Spartan 2, as we saw him literally crush Douglas's shoulder and fling John around like a ragdoll. Due to the time jump 343 decided to go with, anything that 4 and 5 built up was seemingly left by the wayside. Simply put, 343 did not have a clear vision with what they wanted to do. They tried to expand upon a number of different things, and that expansion never had a focused vision that landed strongly within the community. So with this, it seems to have learned the mistakes of their Super Soldier counterpart, IP, and has taken things back to its roots in their game by using a prequel to continue to tell their focused story. Prequels create a unique storytelling opportunity to expand narrative and story, while doing so in a way that helps explain a character's core behavior. We know the legends of the Doomslayer through the Slayer Testaments, and now we're going to see what is at Doomguy's core, what allowed him to achieve such legendary status. Id knows what they have in the Slayer Testaments: gold. This is why we're getting a prequel, and I cannot wait to see the legends played out that we have only read about. The Legendary Studio. It's obvious that id is feeling themselves right now. The recent media push has revealed their confidence. This clearly shows with their pedigree of evolving games and now with the arrival of the Dark Ages. They've stuck to their proverbial guns throughout this development team's 3 games, and the Dark Ages will complete their through line. Comparatively, 343 was never able to achieve the same level of confidence or even belief in themselves or from the Halo community. Whether it be from not sticking to their own guns as firmly as they should have due to fan backlash, executive meddling, or just the overall lack of a confident vision, 343 was able to complete their fumble of the Halo IP by the time Infinite released. And let's not forget their intentions of trying to make Halo a live service game, one of the most impactful reasons we are currently in a single-player AAA gaming drought. But with Doom, things are different. This iteration of id, under the current guard of Stratton and Martin, they clearly know their identity as a studio, and they are doubling down on what makes their Doom games click. With the Dark Ages, we're being promised to continue to get the genre that has defined it. Medieval with a sci-fi fantasy twist and a heavy dose of metal and aggression. But at the same time, Martin makes sure to let us know that their goal is to innovate, always. When the Dark Ages releases, their 3 games will have distinct feels. 2016 was about running and gunning, Eternal was quite acrobatic, and the Dark Ages is about standing and fighting, giving us a balance of the core identity of Doom with a mix of fresh style and innovation of this 3rd game from id by the focused attention and deliverance of their 3 pillars. Combat, exploration, and narrative is something that will expand the scope of fandom of the Doom franchise. Additionally, being that it is a prequel, Stratton and Martin describe the Dark Ages as a perfect entry point for new players, unfamiliar with the already established story and lore, but sure to also be ripe with payoffs, knowledge, and Easter eggs for those already initiated. Either way you have it, the Dark Ages looks ready to permeate the gaming zeitgeist over the upcoming months and hopefully years to come, as id's self-described best game they've ever made. That's it for this prediction video on Doom: The Dark Ages. Let me know down in the comments what you think of my thoughts on Doomslayer usurping John 117, or anything else Doom related. I'm jumping down into the comment section below to keep up the discussion with you all soon. Have a good one and see you on the next one. Peace.